My name's Steven. Student here at Holberton School. I'm here today to introduce Sebastien Tricaud. Is that right? Okay. He is Principal Security Strategist at Splunk.
Yes.
And today he's going to be talking about Honeypots, and that's going to be really exciting.
That's correct.
So please welcome Sebastien Tricaud.
I love it when you start your applause because I feel like, you know, it's warm and you may not applaud by the end of the talk, so it's always like, no, I can go, yeah, thanks. So thanks for having me. I'm really excited to be here. I believe in you guys. You are the next generation of guys doing stuff, so it's awesome. And I like what Holberton is doing by trying to get some guys like me and others from the industry that they kind of know what they're doing. I hope so. And it's hard to know things in this world, right? It's hard to know something very well. Like not earlier than a minute ago with June, and we're looking at how actually something was being executed, like is that the systems, that the shells, that we're kind of arguing, trying to understand. And it sounds obvious, but at the same time, it's never something I thought of. And the only way you can know is just to experiment things. And by experimentation, we learn things over years and over time, right? And the only thing you're sure of, sort of, is what you've been experimenting, right? So you want to experiment as much as you want, as much as you can, so you will learn more and more things. And when we hear about security, it can be kind of crazy because security means a lot of things. First, it's boring. Security means access denied. You want to get there, but it's denied. Like, why, right? Sometimes there's a good reason, and sometimes there's a bad reason. So we try to be in between, and never forget one thing: in security, you are the service of people. You are not the king of the world because you are serving people to help them to basically, make sure that they are secure and not just the banks and corporations. Not earlier than a week ago, I have a good friend of mine. She sent me an email from her mailbox. Hey, Sebastien, how are you? I'm like, well, she isn't saying Merry Christmas or Happy New Year. I'm like, okay, why not? I said, yeah, I'm good. Family's good. How about yourself? And I said, well, yeah, I had to go to Greece. And it's a short trip, I didn't tell anyone. And I'm like, and I'm kind of in trouble now because I got, stolen in a taxi and I got all my stuff stolen and I would need 2,000 euros in emergency. Sure, I can help my friends, right? I mean, think about it. It comes from her real mailbox. It doesn't come from a stranger mailbox, right? It's really her, and I've been talking to her. And her French is pretty good. And I'm like, well, yeah, sure. I mean, I can have friends, but I want to give a call first just to make sure that it's really her. And I'm like, yes, I can give you a call. And by the way, how's your study of taking off aircraft? She doesn't do that. I just wanted to check, right? And the person answered, well, study is going well, but now I'm in trouble. I'm like, yeah, sure. Give me some time. Oh, can you please transfer through Western Union that amount of money? Well, then, because I'm kind of, in a way, security aware, I didn't fall in the trap, but I could have fallen in the trap, even myself, because, I have friends, I want to take care of them, but I would just do a few tricks, right? And I could see the French was getting poorer and poorer over time because that person was speaking to me in French. So it was interesting, and this is security. But this is not what I'm going to talk about today. Today I'm going to be more technical. We're not going to talk about all the ways you handle like this kind of security. But this is still security. Security is a big world that contains a lot of things. And how do we know technical security? Well, you can learn how an operating system works. You can do all those things. That's pretty good. But there's pretty much defense and offense. Defense and how you protect yourself from attackers. And offense is how you attack people so you can do stuff, right? I always love to do in the defense world because not only you have to understand how attacking works, but you also write some code to defense, right? So this is the thing I was more interested with. And when it comes to defense, there isn't a 100 project out there. There was one great project that started in '98 called the Honeynet project. And in the Honeynet project, we didn't want to change the world, we just wanted to give more awareness to people about what was going on. By writing some papers, by writing some tools, by doing things. And over the years, it happened that we've been able to help lots of people around the world with our tools, with our papers. And one day we woke up and we realized, oh wow, they are citing the things we're doing. It's awesome. We were so proud. And in December, I had a lunch with all the guys here. And we were like, all right, it'd be cool to have a honeypot running here so we can see what's going on, right? And so maybe early February, end of January, I could share the results. And we all got enthusiastic about the idea. And what I'm going to do today is just to share the results.
Okay.
Yeah, of course, if you have any question, don't wait until the end of the presentation, because I don't know about you, but me, I tend to forget the question I have, already. So one thing that's very, very important for you to know in computer security is that people can say it's a complicated thing, it's not for you, you get to learn so many things. Forget that. Do it. Do something. If you fail, you will learn, that's fine. And if you learn, that's cool. The more you learn, the better. So we are in 2016, and yet today we're still talking about computer security. That means we all failed. That means my generation and the generation before me failed. Otherwise, you will hear about that. Have you ever heard of guys talking about TV watching? No, because you switch on the TV and it works. There isn't any issue, right? So there isn't any exhibition about TV watchers. There isn't any things, TV watcher groups or whatever, right? There isn't, because it's working. But there is tons of groups around computer security, all those problems that we have in computer security. And this is why it's failing. This is also why you have an opportunity to do something that you enjoy doing. With your brain, with your assets, with the things you really like yourself. And you've got to do that by just doing it, not by learning from someone who knows better than you. No one knows better than you. You know your stuff, right? There's lots of things you suck at. You know that? That also means there's a lot of things you're good at. Don't forget that. That means you can actually use that good things to do some good things in the world, just by bringing your positive energy and doing experimenting and failing and learning and not failing and also succeeding, It comes by experimentation, right? And you have a role to play, but, I don't know, when I started to write code, I first read a book, and I was like, I don't get it. I mean, I've been reading this book like 3-4 times in a row. I don't know, what I'm talking about, sequential write or these kind of things. My first language was Pascal, and I wanted to write into it, I don't know why. And then I had a project, I had something I wanted to do. And because I had a project, I was able to say, oh, all right, I want to get there, so to get there, I need to learn that, all right? And then when you start to learn something, it makes sense. It's the same thing with security. And I just want to, through this presentation, give you some ideas and examples on how we can do things. So, where to start? There's a few software stacks in this world that are actually very popular that people are using. One of them is Apache, the HTTPD DIM, which is serving all the web requests. Another one is WordPress to write blogs. Another one is a Windows share, when you're using Windows, you can share stuff with people. And if you don't pay attention, your share can actually be compromised and people can get your things, right? I've seen organizations that were actually sharing some stuff with Windows share to the whole world. Secret service documents. And what could be those services that can be targeted by attacks, right? So you also know about protocols. So it's not just software stacks, it's also about protocols. So when I first met Julian, we worked together for a voice over IP organization. Back in the days, more than 10 years ago, that's crazy. So, and there was a protocol that was famous out there that was just emerging, C. And now it's kind of a standard protocol for voice over IP used all over the world. And you cannot get around that. That's just the way it works. And you also have some SMB shares, which is the same thing as the Windows shares, right? It's the same thing, it's just a protocol being used. And also, what can be the things you can target in the Windows operating system? So when you think about all the software stack that you have around you, what are those that are actually quite popular enough to be targeted by some individuals with some things you don't want them to do, right? So this is the thing you should look at. And I'll give you a few ideas on how to do that. So a honeypot is a trap that we set around a technology or a few technologies that we want to target. So we pretend we are someone we are not. So we actually trap people. So anyone knows about SSH here? The secure shell? Cool. So the secure shell allows you to connect yourself to a remote computer and to do some stuff, run some commands. It's very popular here. And Kipo is pretending to be a SSH server to trap anyone trying to connect to SSH server, which is new, of course. So you will see those guys targeting you and trying to get some SSH login passwords by trying all the passwords out there. And it's interesting if you look at the dictionary. So basically they try password by dictionary because lots of people that they use as a password, or any. Why any? Because it's written, type any password. And lots of guys are not, computer aware, and they're like, yeah, any. And there you go. And this is something you just put in a dictionary, and then when you replay against whatever account, you will be able to log in because you've been using that script password any, right? So it's interesting. And Kipu allows you to see who is trying to target you and whether the passwords are being tried. So we had like thousands of Kipu instances around the world, and we were able to see the password that the attackers were using most. And we were able to build a list of the top 10 passwords that people are using for SSH. Because this is how the attackers have been successful. And the number one is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. But how do you know if you don't experiment, if you don't try this, if you don't see it by yourself? I can't say, come here and say, yeah, password 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 is the most popular. Yeah, all right, whatever. But if you see it yourself, if you run the experiment yourself, you will be able to understand what's going on and to take a good decision. Being aware is the best thing that can happen to you because when you meet people, you know what you're talking about. And because it's very hard to know what you're talking about, that's good to experiment. Thug, which is a very funny pronunciation, by the way. Thug is trying to crawl the web to get some malware. And I will explain to you how. Just basically capturing things and seeing whether this is a vulnerable executable or a vulnerable PDF or these kind of things. And running all the process of doing that. Compa is the ICS. So ICS is the industrial systems, Honeypot. Do you know that gas stations are connected to the internet? Sorry. Gas stations are connected to the internet today with devices, with an IP address to check whether the tank is full, needs to be refilled, and all that. You didn't know that. I didn't know that either until I heard that, right? And then some guys were aware of that. They decided to write a honeypot called Compot and say, let's see out there if someone is scanning for this type of device. So it's been emulating the stack of a pump station. And he's getting guys scanning and trying to do things, trying to refill the tank, pretend it's full, pretend it's empty. It's crazy. Some guys are doing that. But you didn't know until you've been running experiments. You couldn't know that. There was a guess. I think some guys are trying to compromise some gas stations. There was a guy with some technical knowledge about the stuff that has been writing this honeypot. And there's been the experiment being run after that. And the experiment's been successful. But it could have failed. Maybe no one would have scanned that, right? Like, I've been failing in lots of organizations by putting some honeypots there and thinking I would catch some stuff. And I didn't. But I couldn't know if you run experiments, right? So you need to run the experiment to know what's going on. It's all about that. Glassstop is trying to emulate some web services, like WordPress, like other things like that. And trying to catch, like people are trying to play the login, password, and everything against those popular software stack, and trying to see who is doing what. Who is trying to get to WordPress account, who is trying to get to this other account, and getting information of login, password, and all that. WordPart is could be Glassstop, but it's a very specialized honeypot on WordPress. Even though Glassstop does that, they decided to do it their own way and do it themselves. Which is also something you can do. It's not because there is a software stack here that exists that you cannot write your own. You can write your own. You can also improve the one that you see. You can do everything you want, right? Nothing is preventing you from doing stuff. MITM proxy is the HTTPS proxy to intercept and replay and modify, alter anything that's coming in, in the flow. So it's also another cool software to know, like you can play with HTTPS here. And those two guys here are more focused on the mobile. In the world of today, the personal computer is decreasing like crazy. Like I think this year it was less 15% than last year on the sales. That means that everyone's going mobile. And I was like, from this old generation, not as old generation as Julian, but still. I was looking at my own usage of the internet, and I realized that I was maybe more on my phone than on the personal computer. And I was like, oh, wow, I haven't thought about it.
You're young.
What?
You're young.
Yeah, see. and yeah, I already had white hair when I was 15. And I'm not bald, my hair is growing. So there is some software stacks here. APK Inspector. APK is basically the package for the Android devices. And every time you build an app on Android, you have to compile an APK to distribute it to the market. And because Android has a kind of a free market, they don't really control software that people can build. Some guys, of course, with some malicious intentions, are getting that and trying to compromise your own phone. And think about all the things you've got on your phone. Like you've got, like a two-factor authentication on your phone. Sure, it's on your phone that you authenticate on your phone. It's crazy. I mean, think about it. So those software stacks allows you to analyze and work with mobile things, which is one of the trends of today. And this little work has been done there, actually. Everyone's been working on TCP/IP. Very few guys have worked on the protocols underneath the phone. You can have a look at OpenMoko if you want to dig into that, but that's a very interesting point to think about.
Open what?
OpenMoko. So those guys, they've reversed some protocols in order to build your own kind of software stack. They did the software emulation of the phones, of the GPRS data and all that. So they've done lots of work with that. So dig into that, because few guys that have the interest into this. But if you just think about doing it yourself, you can solve lots of problems actually. So now, you've been running those honeypots, and I'm going to show you the experiment and on the honeypot that we have here. What do you do with an executable? Once you capture an executable, first you want to check whether it's a known virus. Basically, antivirus, they have lots of signatures, but whether this is or not a virus. And you would be scared by the truth. Like with all the binaries you can collect, antivirus, they will maybe detect 40%. Is that a failure? Well, 40% is better than 0, but it's still 40%. So how do you handle that situation? When you get in an organization, like after the school, you get a job, and you hear about the security things, and you're like, yeah, we have an antivirus, so nothing to worry about. Well, man, antivirus only protects 40%. How do you know? Well, I've been running the experiment myself. I know that. So, you get your executable, you run the antivirus. Often people will use Clamavi because it has lots of signatures, it runs on Linux, and it's able to automate lots of things. When you've done that, you can submit your sample to VirusTotal, which is a website that gathers all the binaries you can send to it. And VirusTotal will run that through lots of different antivirus that they have. Basically, it's got acquired by Google because they could get all those executables around the world that are actually not known. Because if you're not sure about something, you will submit there. And then you will have an analysis of something. And if there is no antivirus matching, they want to know. Right? That's interesting. You can also run a sandbox. So a sandbox is a software called Cuckoo that you can get. A sandbox is basically running a virtual machine and is running your executable into that virtual machine, getting all the logs, all the things the virus has been trying to touch, like a registry table, trying to get a PCAP. A PCAP is the capture of the network traffic that is being left by your virus. And you can run that, and you can see what's going on, what the virus is actually doing. So I have lots of friends who work in CERTs. CERTs are computer emergency response teams in banks. And those guys, when they have a virus that is targeting them, they have to clean machines. But how do you clean machines? Well, you need to know what files are being touched by those viruses, actually, to clean the machines. Otherwise, you have to clean from scratch. And then it's all about time. So they know that. They're running the sandbox. And then they get to the machine, they know exactly what to do. So it's not rocket science, right? It's just about using some tools, some tricks, and play around. That's it. That's it. And you can be fairly efficient, actually, when you think about it. And the last resort, oh, Emacs killed me here. But anyway, the last resort, you can also analyze manually your virus by running IDA, which is a very popular reverse software to actually check whether the functions being run and the order and everything. So it will actually help you to understand how a binary is being built. So you can see what's going on.
Is that an assembly inspector?
Yes.
Okay.
Now that you know what to do with an executable, you want to know what to do with a PDF. I remember when I was a teenager, I was already in security, and my friend said, you cannot have a virus with an image. I said, yeah, you cannot have a virus with an image. That's true, it's only an executable. Man, bullshit to that, it's crazy. It can be a Word document with a macro. You know that Acrobat Reader is able to execute PDF? Is able to execute JavaScript? You know that? You can put some JavaScript in your PDF. That's why you can actually compromise it. It's crazy. But hey, that's how it is. It's good to know that, right? And it's not just the Acrobat Reader, it's all the PDF readers out there that are doing that. So you have to be aware of the features and what people can do with it. And even now with an image, you can also compromise the system because the image is being sent through a library like the libjpeg or the libpng to read JPEG or PNG images. And those libraries, they have weaknesses, and you can also exploit those weaknesses through the image that is compromised. Anyway, that's for another talk later. So, you get the JavaScript code in your PDF. SpiderMonkey is a Mozilla JavaScript engine. So it's a piece of software you can actually grab on GitHub, and you can compile, and you can run the official Mozilla JavaScript emulator. And V8 is the one that Google is having. You can also grab it, you can compile it, and you can run JavaScript in the way Chrome would have actually run the JavaScript code. And very recently, in January, Microsoft has released their code, which is a JavaScript engine as open source as well. It's working only for Windows with Windows headers, but with enough will, if you want to port that to Linux, that would be cool. And it's an easy thing to do, and you get the thing. All good for you. And what we want to do here is to run this JavaScript executable from Mozilla, the official one, under libemu. And then the question is, what is libemu? Well, it's the emulation library. What is the emulation library? Well, that's the next slide. So, libemu is a free software that allows to emulate the x86 CPU. What is the x86 CPU? Well, it's all the processors that have been built by Intel. And you're like, but you told me about mobile. It's not even handling ARM, which is the processor for all the mobile devices. That's a good point. Just write the code. We need you. You see, we need people like you to be able to write and improve the things. So libemu is pretending to be the x86 CPU to see the instructions that are actually being sent to catch shellcodes. What is shellcodes? All those buzzwords, it's crazy. It's going to kill you. A shellcode is a code that gives you a shell. A shell is something that you can actually type commands in to do whatever you want. So when a hacker compromises a machine, they will actually run a shell because they want to type commands, they want to do things. So they will have a shell code, which is the minimalistic code that emulates a shell that they want to run after the compromission of the system.
Now look at this.
You got it? That is a shell code. It's a very small shell code actually, but still. So that's cool.
That's exactly such research.
The smallest, the better. So this is a shell code that will actually execute something on the system, as Julien said. So it's exactly what you want. You want to run a minimalistic thing that will help you to run whatever you want. And that's actually pretty neat, because you want to send a very few bytes. With just those bytes here, you compromise the system. So the libemu is here to understand what's going on. And to understand what's going on at the CPU level. So your CPU, so a register in the CPU is basically a variable, right? So the more variables you have, the better, because that means you can run the more instructions. How many CPU the x86 had? Only 4. And you're like, only 4? That's crazy. Yeah, it's crazy, only 4. But yet it's the most popular, less and less CPU out there. Only 4 registers. And on ARM it's 12. So there are things to do. And registers work a certain way. So you want to get a function that the CPU provides. For example, you want to add something. You put the value in one register, another value in another register, and in the third register you will get the result of whatever it is that you want to make. For example, add, remove, and all that. And then you will read the code sequence like here, and we'll see with the code sequence what's going on, what is being done. Every interruptions will be that libemu will get every interruption to see what is the syscall that is being trying to be made. So let's go back to the basics a little bit. An operating system provides to the developers system calls, which is functions that the system can make. Normally those functions have an abstraction layer, which is a C library. So when you write code in C, you use functions of the C library, like printf. But inside printf, the guys, they use the syscall, which is print k for the kernel print message if you want to. So you run the syscall that is actually within the kernel that the kernel provides to you. Executing a function has a syscall number. Every operating system has a different syscall number and provides different features. So printing on Windows doesn't have the same syscall number as printing on Linux, for example, just because it's different operating systems. Every CPU works a different way. So that also means that libemu has to get the syscalls from Linux and Windows, because those are different operating systems. And you want to be able to know what's going on here, and that could be something targeting either Linux or Windows. And you want to decode that. And libemu does that for you as a library. And libemu does another thing that is pretty neat. It is doing some heuristic on the getPC instructions. What is getPC? It's the register called EIP, which is the instruction pointer. So every time you run a function, you return from that function. You can return a value, you can return nothing, but you return because you run a function after another. So you say, I return to that function, and now here goes the next function. And what the guys that are trying to break into the systems do, they want to jump straight to where you return to the function, execute your code here. And to do that, they use the EIP register to put the instruction pointer to the code they have, and not the code that should be actually executed, right? And what the guys want? Not to run function after functions. They just want to run their function, only one function. So if you see that EIP stops getting return function pointers, that means that it's most likely to be a shellcode that the guys are trying to execute. And that's good to know that. And libemu is actually helping you there to do this work. So this is why it's interesting to execute things on libemu so you can see what's really going on. And you also get a free shellcode detection mechanism by doing getPC heuristics. Let's be a little bit more technical now. I'm kidding. So, I want to introduce to you the experiment that we've done for a month and a half. It's called Holberton, which is your friendly honeypot here. And we installed Dionysia in /opt. And if you look in /opt Dionysia var Dionysia, which is where everything is dumped, you have a bunch of directories and you have a bunch of databases. So here, you get the logs of everything that's going on in SQL. So you can actually have a front end on it, and you can actually visualize what's going on. You have all the SIP accounts that people have been trying to. You have all the fake HTTP server that's being trying to be run, and you have the binaries that is being trying to capture. And what I told all the guys, Julien, we were the three of us. We were having lunch together.
Yeah, a while ago, yeah.
Right. So I told them, when you run a honeypot, no later than 5 minutes, you have an executable right in there. This is what I told them, remember? And this is the thing I experimented like a year before. And it was the time to run a honeypot again, and I just didn't know. And I was like, after 5 minutes, still no executable. I mean, what's going on, right? And it's interesting. Because what I've got was only, in a month and a half, only one executable. And that was a big surprise for me. Because I was used to run those kind of stuff, and I was used to see lots of binaries being collected, not just one. And the first binary after 5 minutes. But back in the days, Windows XP was still very popular here. And when Windows XP was being installed the first time, it was already vulnerable, and virus was exploiting that. So you were not finished to install Windows XP, that you already had virus in the machine, if you were connected to the internet. So it seems that now it's getting better. At the same time, maybe there's some stuff we could improve in Daionia to capture more malware, because I was surprised. I was really surprised. But still, I got a nice one. What is this? This is a hash. What is a hash? This is just a mathematical function to get a number out of whatever. But from that number, you cannot guess the whatever. It's used for password storing, for example. So this could be a way, not to encrypt, but to hash your password. So next time you type a password, you would actually rehash and compare the hash to see if it's true. And then you're like, but how people can crack the passwords? Well, because they have what they call the rainbow tables, which is a combination of all those hashes of all the common passwords. So the only thing you have to do is just to compare what they've got, and because they've done the conversion already, they can find it back. But here, this is what we do on an executable. And too bad there's only one, but if there's been like, there used to be a year ago, not even a year ago, like 2,000 virus per day on the machine, right? And I had different hashes. But sometimes they were the same virus. Why? Because the virus, they use what we call polymorphism. So basically the same code that is encrypted differently with a different key. This way they have a different signature, but still the same stuff being executed, just to get around antivirus. So a good way to avoid that is to do what's called a PE hash. PE is for portable executable. It's the executable structure of Windows. And instead of hashing the content, you hash only the PE structure. So you can actually collect and group your virus much better than what you're doing here with a hash on the whole file. All right? So one file, but still, it's a file you can get, it's a file you can analyze, it's a real virus, you can play with that. And if you run manually with the scanning on that file, you will actually get a Trojan here, and you can get more information. You can also run that on Virus Total to see how many antivirus are actually checking that. Because maybe there's some, and you'll be surprised, there will be some that won't be able to catch it. So now let's have a look at the fake web browser, web server that we have. Yes?
Is it possible to trace where that came from?
Yes, we have all of those. So you can actually see the source IP that send that to you and all that.
Do you know?
Oh, I guess you can have access to the machine. I mean, that's not an issue. Or you can have access to the dump of the var. So if you want to investigate, that's feel free. It's all in there. So here, Daionia is emulating a web browser, and it's been capturing a few things: info.zip and that executable here. And what do we do now? What is the next step? Remember, what is the next step we do with executables? We want to run an antivirus. So we run timescan and we get another Trojan here, which is different from the first one. So it's a good way to catch virus and to see what's going on for real. From who and how, all those you can learn. So Daionia isn't just a simple honeypot, it also contains some cool features such as voice over IP honeypot. So in here, we just look at the SIP accounts that are being tried in the SQL database. We dump the database, and we have two things here. We have those users being tried, and those passwords being tried, and all sort of information on the SIP accounts. So we are being scanned by someone who wants to reuse our SIP, fake SIP honeypot. There's also another directory that Diania is actually creating. It's called the B streams. So the B streams is whenever you have a connection back. Because you may have some guys trying to connect to you and just pull off and that's it. But what's more interesting to analyze is people who connected to you and got a connection back. Because you know they had a connection back, you know they're trying to do some bad things. And those are all the B streams being stored, and it's happening every day. So today we're what, the third? So let's look into that directory. I just did that this morning. Well, it's a good thing about doing the slides in the morning, just before arriving, is that you can actually show some very recent stuff. So in the B streams of today, this is all the things I had today on the Honeypot. So you can see here the protocols, SMB, for trying some stuff, MySQL, HTTPD, FTP, EP mapper, which is Jabber. So people are trying to scan for Jabber, and SIP sessions, which is the voice over IP thing. So if you look in those files, you will actually see what's going on there, what people are trying to do, what did they send, what did they receive, and what did they try to do. And then you can make a very, very accurate picture of today, what's going on today, not a report that someone has wrote that you really don't even know how the experiment to write. This way you can know yourself. You can know better. Conclusion. I mean, I've been saying that during the whole speech, but experiment. There is no way for you to know if you don't experiment. It's the dark. Don't be scared, just do it. If you don't do it, of course you can be scared because you will never know, right? So don't let yourself be scared, just experiment. It can be hard, but if you take the shortcut, it can be easy too, right? So don't get scared away. Don't make it too hard in the first sight. If it's too hard, anything hard can be subdivided into a simple task. So you just have to find the simple things to start with. And it's not hard. And here, with the community of people you have here, you can ask questions to me, to other guys you will see, to guys you've met already, to get more insight about something. How do you know if you haven't seen? I mean, like sometimes we can say, and it's easy to say, yeah, it's not the way it works. Well, who are you to tell that? We know we all make mistakes too, right? So we need to be able to know what we're talking about. And to know is by experimenting. And just do the things you enjoy doing. Because if it's something you enjoy doing, it's not work. It's just something you enjoy doing. And you can spend lots of time with it. So just find the thing you enjoy, find the thing you know, and just experiment and try it. That's all you need to do. All right, well, thanks. And if you have some questions.
So you said that you knew when they connected back that they would be doing something bad, right? How do you know this?
You know, because you are the system, you are the software. Mm-hmm. So you know that someone didn't just send, you know TCP/IP a little bit?
No, not really.
So basically in TCP/IP people send some stuff to you and they expect a connection back. Like if you send a scene, which is a flag in TCP/IP to initiate the session, you expect someone to acknowledge that scene back to you. So it's a good way for port scanning to know what services are being offered by the machine by just sending those flags and getting the results back. But more than just those initialization, you want to know if someone not only tries to connect to your web server, but tries to push data to it. And you will of course answer to that push by having a connection back. And you know that it's very reliable because it's not just someone who tried to scan or see what's going on, someone try to do something. And this is something that requires an answer from you that you are trying to emulate. This is why you are a honeypot. and then you can bring it back to the person, and then you can log this was a connection back as a B string. Yeah,
Oh, go ahead.
whatever. Yeah.
Actually, this has to do with the school as well. I was actually wondering if we know the attacker's IP address, can we actually make it part of the curriculum to actually an ethical hacking part where we actually go and try to target him in return?
So I'll give you an example. I will give you a very good example on this. We've got friends who've been, maybe we should try to help the video for a while. I'll tell you later. But I got friends who've been breaking into some guys trying to attack them at a massive scale. And they've been interviewed by the police because they were breaking into computers. But the police told them, we know you've been doing good, we know that. But according to the law, we have to arrest you. But no worries, we'll do everything we can, we're on your side. And of course it got cleaned. But you are breaking the law if you get into a computer, even if that computer attacks you, don't attack back. It's easy. It's easy because if you know you've been attacked, you know this guy has been exploited by this weakness because he's attacking you with a very same weakness. But if you attack back, that means you're compromising a system that's not yours.
Yeah, and also like most of the time those people they don't know they attack you because their system has been compromised, so it can be you
Oh, that's true.
attacking me.
I see.
You don't know about it, so if I attack back, then it's not always bad news. That's the thing.
So there's things to follow. You contact the abused, you try to contact the guy, and you help them by giving some awareness. And if you see a weakness being exploited, maybe writing a blog or a paper is a good thing, because you can give to the world information that people will actually query for. So instead of just keeping it for yourself, share it to the community.
Has the law caught up with attackers? What are the laws really concerning getting into a computer? Because there's valid ways of doing it and perfectly acceptable if you're running a legitimate software program, but how do you draw the line?
There isn't any acceptable way or any way you can compromise someone's back. This is not acceptable. There is ways to handle this. If you don't know how to handle this, don't do it like carbon. Because today we're in 2016. People are aware of these things. And lots of people are working on that. So you may be the one who has crimes in the first place if you do that, right? Suppose they don't have the logs of the attacker because they get removed after a while, right? And those guys that are attacking you is because they've been compromised in the first place. And their logs of the first attack has been removed. Who will they see as the first attacker? You. How will you defend yourself? Well, I've been attacked first. Well, are you sure you kept the proof? Are you sure you want to get into that trouble? You really get into trouble, I tell you, with experience.
So there's an enforcement law agency that would go after you in 2016 right now?
It's not like that. It's not. First, it depends on the country you're in, and it's not as easy as that, right? But you expose yourself to that.
Okay.
Very seriously. And it's not because you've done that that's right away you'll be in prison, is what I'm saying. But you can be. And it's something you want to have to deal with. Unless, even if what you've done is legitimate and you've been trying to help, even that, it will be like 10 years of fighting the law and trying to pay a lawyer here for 10 years, you'll love it.
Okay.
So you may not want that.
Okay.
So don't do that. That's what I'm saying. Just don't do
Right.
that.
Okay.
Learn how to react to that. Yes. Learn how to get in touch with the guys. Yes. Learn how to write blog posts about what happened to you and what people can do to prevent that. Yes. Do that. Talk to guys who know what they're doing here. Even when you find, like, I have a friend, once he found a vulnerability in all the firewalls out there because it was a problem with the way firewalls were actually working. So it's not just a Linux stack, it was Linux, Checkpoint, all the firewall vendors pretty much. And he wanted to report to that vulnerability, which is kind of messy. And how do you do that? You don't want to do that in public because then you're making a 0 day and people can compromise systems. So we got in touch with the Microsoft team. They have teams that is able to work with different vendors, across vendors, to react to that stuff. And we did let Microsoft do the work of handling that situation because we just didn't know how to handle it. We were not able to contact all the vendors as Microsoft was able to. So it just, if you don't know, get someone who knows. We didn't know how to do. So my friend asked me, he thought I knew, but I had some friends in the US cert. I asked my friends in the US cert, maybe with Microsoft it's easier. And we went to Microsoft and we had all the whole thing with Microsoft. They were really helpful. So if you don't know how to do something, just don't pretend or don't do it yourself. Just try to sit back, relax, breathe, and find someone who can help you. Otherwise, you can be in trouble.
In the tech industry, is there a trend towards security being used more in-house or outsourcing it to larger companies that handle that?
Very good question. Everything exists. Depends on the size of the organization as well. And sometimes security is so big that it's not just one security team, it's multiple security teams. And sometimes you have some security teams in-house and some others not in-house. So as a software vendor, it may be good to externalize the security assessment of your software. You want to know from an external eye, from someone who doesn't know your software, the weaknesses they may find. So it's always a good idea to externalize that kind of stuff. But it's also good to have a product team that is able to handle the product security over years, right? So you kind of need both.
Mm-hmm.
Then you may want to say, how do I handle the incidents? You may need a cert, but maybe you're too small to have a cert. You cannot pay for people to do that. So you will externalize the cert. In the first place, that means that you have to put your logs back to another organization, which is MISSP, like Verizon and those guys that do that. And they will give you a report to you every time they see something, and you have all the tools, you have all the wisdom and knowledge across multiple organizations. You might also want to do some hybrid approach where you have some stuff in-house and you externalize some other things. So there isn't any answer. The key for thinking about that problem is, what is it that I want to solve? What is the risk I have? When you talk to a bank, for example, you think that security is the most important thing for a bank? Sounds like, right? But it isn't. Trading is. Getting money from the market is the priority for a bank. Not security, when you think about it, right? So when you tell them, well, you have to put all the systems to protect your customers, they're, well, yeah, yeah, sure. But if I'm broken into, I just pay like $2 million, or even each of them, like 1,000 of them. It's not enough money compared to one guy, one trader, can do in one morning. So it's all about the risk that you have and how you compare with your business, your core business. Your core business is never security. Your core business is what? So now how do you organize security around that? And this is, there isn't an answer because there isn't a way to do that. It has to do with the people you have in-house. It has to do with what is your business, what is the risk that you have, and where are you in the phase of the development of the organization. Like, maybe one day, the school here would be compromised, right? But it's not a good idea to hire a security team to avoid being compromised today because the school is starting. But maybe in 5 years it will be big enough, a worldwide organization, who knows, right? And then they will need a security team, maybe. But today that would be a waste of time and money.
No way of you too.
Can you share what you're working on now? Like, are you still doing things like Honeypots? Are you working in Honeypot and doing
So right now, I'm
Can you repeat the question?
yeah, she's asking what I'm working on right now. Right now, I'm working on the emulation stack for ARM using Vagrant, which is a software that emulates a CPU and that translates x86 ARM into a RISC architecture in order to check from the RISC architecture if there's some guys doing the shell code doing some heuristic and this kind of things. So I'm playing with this kind of things now. That's what I'm doing. I don't know if that.
So you did this all on your own, you're not affiliated with it?
No. In my company, I'm doing some company things that I cannot talk publicly about because it's research, and we may or may not use some of the things I'm doing. So I cannot talk about the things I'm doing in the community. It's not really far away from what I'm telling you. It's not kind of remote. it's similar to that. It's basically, it's more a customer thing. It's more how do we bring that research into the hands of a customer to make the customers more secure, pretty much. That's the idea.
So are there ever scenarios where the people behind the malicious code try to make sure that they can figure out when they're being trapped by a honeypot, and like, are there countermeasures that those people are trying to implement or anything like that?
Yes, lots. So a virus will try to see if it's running on a virtual machine or not. So a virus will have lots of anti-virtual machine techniques. But because the guys that are breaking the sandbox know that, they try to do the anti. So it's kind of, never-ending fighting. And there's lots of things that people are trying to, people are aware of that, but not all of them. Interestingly enough, there is enough stuff to capture by just running a very dumb honeypot to capture a virus like we've seen. Is that enough? No. But it's better than nothing. What is an APT? APT stands for Advanced Persistent Threat. We hear that all the time in IT, and people can say it's a bullshit buzzword. Maybe, yeah, I agree. But if I write a virus targeting you today, there isn't any antivirus that is going to detect it because I wrote it myself. So there isn't any known signature for it. So how do we handle that situation? That's the thing to think about. No one knows the answer. It's not a question that requires an answer. It's thinking like, what can I do despite that, right? And this is why organizations are compromised. Back in the early 90s, there was a guy called Mudge. He was in front of the Congress, and he told them, anything that's on the internet can be compromised. And it's true. I got friends working for, I cannot name it, I'm the camera, but he's working for a large organization. And a very, very popular software that you all use.
Snapchat?
And, and he told me, we are a big security team working on that software. We have a lot of knowledge about security. And it's one thing that scares me. One thing that scares me. It's the little thing we didn't think about. The little thing we forgot that those guys are using to exploit us. And guys are doing that. Because in front, it's a business. It's people making money out of that. So don't worry, they know what they're doing. They have teams of people that know what they're doing. And these guys run the whole team. And he tells me, it's hard to tell publicly, but we do all this work, but I'm always scared of the little things we forgot. Yes?
So all the code that you captured in your Honeypot, what prevented, or what prevents that from entering the network and the machines through the normal route?
So what you're saying is what can we do to prevent these things to happen?
Well, I'm assuming that all that traffic that you captured in Honeypot did not enter the network, did not enter the machines.
Your machines here?
Yeah, in this network. And so what prevented that from happening?
Because it's actually not here in here, but that's true. If I have put a machine here that's a honeypot in here on the same network, that honeypot could have been compromised, and then they could actually jump to other machines in the same network. Yes. So this is something to really consider. And what you do isn't anything on the machine. Well, you can do some firewalling and stuff, but let's assume it's going to get compromised. It's more on network level where you actually separate that instance from the network. So even if the guy has access to the machine, they won't be able to rebound on the other machines, pretty much.
So where did that honeypot actually reside?
It's Gandhi. They are hosting.
And then,
So it's on Gandhi to isolate the machines from the other customers.
and so if all that traffic was hitting the honeypot, then one might assume all that traffic or something like it was hitting this network.
No, it's not on this network here.
But a similar type of traffic is pinging this network every day?
So those machines are separated from the internet with a router.
Okay.
So that router may see it. I don't know how the network is being done here, but basically you will have a front router that could be compromised potentially. and that could actually get you to those machines.
So it's a
That's-
firewall.
That's, the truth is, now you know the truth. No one is secure, even though you're behind the router, you may not be secure. Because even the router is actually from the TCP/IP level, is giving information from those machines. You can actually give stuff back. Like, it is easy to know how many machines are behind the router, because the router is just changing the source IP and the source port, not the destination IP, not the destination part, and not the rest of the stack of TCP/IP. So you can actually check into the TCP/IP stack some numbers that will give you over time the number of machines you have behind you. I don't know, we may want to do a networking session at some point. Be fun.
So that one piece of, that one vulnerability in all the Linux routers, that was a huge deal because
Yes.
they compromised all the routers.
Yes. This is one of the things that has been discovered by the revelations by Edward Snowden, where Chinese or American governments are intercepting some routers that they send to foreign countries. And some stuff, yeah. It's very powerful because it's the key, right? You can do pretty much what you want.
Wow. So they just build the router in China, export it to the US, and have the bug in it.
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
That's pretty cool.
Okay.
You referred to a risk architecture that you do when you're building
Yes.
the systems that you're working on. How much do they evolve, or how customizable is the architecture itself? Like how much, or is it just one standard risk architecture that you're working with that would apply across
So,
your products?
Vadrin emulates a pseudo risk architecture assembly code.
Okay.
So it's like it's pretending to be a risk CPU. So you get the risk instructions that you can do whatever you want with it without having to know the x86 or the AR instructions.
Okay, so they're standard.
Vadrin standardized this into risk, so you can work just on risk instead of having to work on all the different CPUs architecture.
Okay.
Risk is a good compromission of verbosity with powerful and verbose, you know, it's pretty good.
Yeah, we had an assembly project, and when I tried to look up, how to code an assembly, I kept getting like very specific assembly code, and I realized that they were all different,
Yes.
saying that, hey, look, you're not on a 64-bit, this is for 32-bit. So I couldn't get any useful information on how to do my project on the internet because there's a variety of architectures. So what do you think would be a good step for us, and what kind of CPU would this particular Holberton be emulating? Would it be an Intel? Would it be x86? Is it 32-bit? Is it 64?
So in this case, it's the x64, x86-64, regular CPU.
But what is regular?
So assembly, where it's complicated, whether it's not a language like any other language. Assembly is a lower level. It's still a higher level than the bits that you have in CPUs, but first there's multiple assembly syntaxes. Then you have assembly opcodes. So every instruction refers to an opcode, which is basically an integer number in the Intel manual or the ARM manual, so you know what's actually being done here. So when you read a binary file, you will see maybe 80, and 80 is the opcode for interruption, right? So it can be on Linux or Windows. If you see 80 as a number, it's because it's calling for an interruption. And now, from the interruption, it calls a syscall, and the syscall calls for arguments. So you need to also have a table of reference of the operating system that you're having syscalls and these kind of things. I've wrote a small compiler that is translating some Python code into x86 64 for Linux only, just as a fun project. Basically I like Python as a language to write things very, very fast, and I want to learn this stuff, how to generate your own ELF file and the pseudocode you put in there and how you automate that. Basically, you need to know what is the target operating system, what is the target CPU, and then you can actually search on the internet for, I want to write assembly for Linux, and then you will get more information.
And then you do also the syntax. Like, is it
Right.
AT&T or-
So whether you're using the AT&T syntax or the GNU syntax or
Right, so the compiler that we were using was NASM, with that,
the Windows.
oh, that's the
Is
window.
it? Or JSM? No,
We were
you're right,
using it in
no, it's
Ubuntu.
MASM.
Wait, but we were using it in Ubuntu, right?
Yeah, Windows in MASM.
Right. Yeah.
Oh,
And-
NASM, yeah, N for November. Yeah, so is that the one that you use for Linux? Well, if you wanted to tell someone, here's where you can start, what would be a good solid
Sure.
first choice assembly syntax and platform? And can we emulate that platform easily from a Mac
So-
like these?
I don't write programs in assembly. I write portions of programs in assembly.
Of course, yeah.
So it depends where you are. If you want to learn, write code in assembly, so you can write your programs in assembly and you will learn lots of things. But when you know that, you don't want to write all those pages for a small teeny thing. So you want to automate this and you write whatever language you want, but you can use even in Python or C. You can insert your assembly code to do what is it that you want to do. And the compiler will help you. For example, GCC will optimize the register to use. So you say, I want to put a variable in this register, instead of mentioning the register name, you just give underscore register underscore, and GCC will automatically replace with the most optimized register for that function. For you. So you don't even have to worry about the details. So it depends where you are in the journey. If you want to start, yeah, write full-fledged programs in assembly, and maybe not even using NASM, because NASM is doing the linking for you. It's going to get the function calls from foreign functions for you, and you won't even see that. Write your own structure. Use the hexadecimal editor and write the opcodes if you want to do this.
No, maybe step 2 is doing this. Yeah, I think like right away, if you start assembly, you don't want to write opcodes.
It's a good way to know what's going on too. I don't know. I mean, that's
But it's super hard. Like.
Yeah. It depends on whatever you want to do. I mean, if you want to play and learn, maybe yeah, you're right. You don't want to worry about the linking phase, and you just write the GNU syntax, and you learn how to write GNU assembly on Linux 86, and you're good to go.
So GNU is a lower abstraction level than the assembly compilers such as MASM or NASM?
No. Every assembly has a syntax. Actually, the lower level is 0 and 1s.
Okay.
A higher level is hexadecimal. A higher level is how you get from a language, writing add or move, instead of writing the opcode.
Okay.
Well, then you have a syntax to follow.
Also, you're
And
saying
that
there's
syntax-
different levels of abstraction within the assembly
No,
compilers?
let's make it clear. A CPU only executes 0 and 1s. The higher abstraction of those 0 and 1s is hexadecimal, right? And then, what do you do with those hexadecimal codes? You get to the Intel manual, you look at the opcodes, and you know what everything means, right? Otherwise, there's no way to know
Yeah,
what
but where
that
does
stuff means.
where does GNU come in there?
GNU is actually a higher level. GNU is doing
So it's not assembly?
good question. You write assembly following a syntax. On AT&T, it's the target is on the right and the source is on the left. On GNU, the target is on the left and the source is on the right. So when you want to put whatever value in whatever register, with GNU, it will be move, register, comma, value. If it's AT&T, it will be move, value, space, register.
So for the project that we had, for example, what am I using GNU or am I using AT&T? It was a Ubuntu, and it was
So to make it more
I
complicated,
think it was written on the product, it was Intel syntax.
Intel syntax.
so to make it even more complicated,
Oh, okay.
NASM is able to parse multiple types of syntax.
Okay.
So you can even specify to NASM, oh, this is a more AT&T style, or this is a more GNU style, whatever.
Okay. So in the arguments, I guess, Julian, in the arguments you specified that it was Intel that we were using?
Yeah.
So, okay. So that's what the arguments.
Intel, so it's the same as
Oh.
for the order of the.
Sorry?
For the order of the arguments after the instruction, it's the same as it's your instruction and then destination and source.
New and Intel are the same?
Not exactly, but the order of the arguments are the same.
Okay.
Those are all good questions, and you need to learn that. If you have a doubt, you can actually look that on the internet, and you will get the information. You can go fast. Just do it. There is a wiki books, I think, on assembly language with the GNU syntax. So just follow the things. All right.